Good morning, Anthony. What's been going on?
Not much, Cleo. How are you? As we finally found our way back to doing this again, it's been quite an absence, but we're back to doing it again. As always, much to talk about. So, what are your thoughts on what's kind of going on in the media landscape and the world landscape, for that matter?
Well, God, there's so much going on. There's so much to talk about, but I'll stick to our topics that we selected so we can get the show over with before the next day.
Well, yeah. Well, like we kind of hinted in the tease there, Michael Sam is back in the news. You may recall, about a year ago, or a little more than a year ago, right after around the NFL draft, he was selected by the St. Louis Rams in the draft, and there was a big pageantry. You may recall, television picked up him kissing his boyfriend at the time with cake and everything flowing, and then he tried to make it.
Was the cake flowing?
No, well, the cake was pretty obvious. But anyway, moving along, he tried to make it with the St. Louis Rams. And let me back up for a second. Much fanfare, and he was viewed as a very courageous person for coming out as the first football player to come out as he left the University of Missouri and tried to make it in the NFL. And everyone stepped up. GLAAD media, everyone was calling him courageous. ESPN gave him an award for their ESPYs show. And he didn't stick it with the St. Louis Rams. Then he tried to make it with the Dallas Cowboys. That didn't work out. Then he goes to the Canadian Football League and signs with the Montreal team up there. And about just before their season started, which was about June, he left, citing, and there was no reason at that particular time. He left, came back, played a game, and he became the first out gay player to play in professional football. And then just recently, he cites mental concerns and leaves the team. What I'm noting in that is that all these people who viewed him as courageous and thought what he was doing was groundbreaking and thought he was a role model, they're nowhere to be found right now as he is going through some tough challenges in his life.
Well, the only reason I think we both know the only reason he got all this press is because he came out calling himself gay. Because just like with Jason Collins and the other young brother who, quote unquote, came out, all at the urging of white people, none of these people are great superstars or phenomenal, second to none athletes with great high level skill. But they happen to be black men and they happen to be willing to identify as gay publicly with mostly white fanfare. And I think that probably all of them are going through some mental stuff. I think that Sam is the one who finally said it because the limelight is on him, and he's still trying to get a gig. The young brother is playing college basketball in and out, and Jason is went on and retired, so there's no reason to talk about him. But Sam was still trying to do stuff. But I don't. But I think one thing that's clear here is that coming out as gay doesn't necessarily uplift your life or improve your mental health status, which is the theory white gays have put out, and some blacks have quoted that, supporting that philosophy. And what you're saying about the lack of support, I think, is something to be expected because they only use him to put a black face on the white gay agenda and to glorify that movement. But otherwise, they have no real use for him.
Right.
And I think he's learned that, and that's part of what I think has suppressed him, along with his athletic failure as a football player.
Right. Well, a couple of things you point out there, which I agree with. Just to give more factual context, the man that he was seen intimate with after he was drafted by the St. Louis Rams was his then boyfriend. That relationship broke off, and then he went to the Canadian Football League, and things didn't work out there. But it comes off as so disingenuous. And again, GLAAD media may have a comment sometime soon, or whatever, but there's been nothing immediate, and I believe this happened late last week, and we've not heard anything since. And trust me, and you know this too, GQ magazine saw him as the man of the year. I mean, there were so many endorsements. Everyone was speaking about how strong this man was. And of course, you do recall this year at GLAAD Media's some event that GLAAD Media had, Kerry Washington talked about how homophobic the black community is. Now, who really is homophobic in this case? And who is disingenuous in this case? Because if you look at it, here's a man Michael Sam, who's saying that he needs help. I have mental concerns. He could be on a ledge somewhere. He could have a gun in his hand. We don't know what's going on, but no one is saying, hey, Michael, what's going on? You all right? No one from GLAAD Media, Kerry Washington, and her comments and her quickness to point out the homophobia in the black community, she's not making any comments either. That's the disingenuous behavior that's troublesome for me.
Yeah, well, I hate to sound so lackadaisical about this, but everything that you've mentioned, including Kerry Washington's performance at GLAAD, this is all just contrived drama and people just jumping on the bandwagon of the white gays, which is a very, very powerful and apparently compelling bandwagon. Because I know some brothers who've jumped on it too. I won't say their names, but they're black. One is a black male that's often talking on CNN, and you can tell you can tell they've read the gay rights book handbook on what to say and to get their approval because it's a powerful white group in this country. But I don't think that they do come to the support of black people ever when they're having personal issues. And frankly, I think that the mental health piece scares a lot of people in the gay community because homosexuality is often by haters associated with mental health. So they might not know what to do with that issue. But who knows? Maybe Sam is saying, "Stay away from me."
What's the end game on in terms of the white gay world? What's their end game? I mean, so you're saying that they are doing this is part of an agenda. So what is the end game in the agenda?
The end game is power, wealth, political, successful political maneuverings, and fighting for what they want as white people in this country and getting it. That's the end game is power and access.
Okay, well,
That has nothing to do with Michael Sam. When they co-sign the coming out or urge the coming out of these athletes, it's to legitimize their movement and legitimize them. Like for example, and I hope this point is clear because it's kind of another tier to this. Frank Ocean, for example, Frank Ocean admits that he fell in love with a man and had a relationship with a male. He never identified as gay. He never said anything he never called himself gay or joined that movement. Well, being manipulative as GLAAD is, they give him an award. He doesn't show up for the award because he's not going to be played by them. Ocean tends to be a lot more black acculturated, and gay is not black acculturated. So can't nobody say he was in a closet. But what he symbolically makes clear is that everybody's not down with LGBTQ, even if they're willing to talk about loving someone of the same gender. But my point is that not everybody falls for their manipulation, even though Kerry Washington did, who called herself a person of color and called the people that she's getting ready to critique black when she got to that critical part of her speech. Interesting dichotomy there. These people are doing a song and dance for the powerful white and gay community, and Frank Ocean didn't. That's my point. And also Queen Latifah, who's often associated with homosexuality, etc., won't play into that lesbian and gay stuff either. And it's clear, particularly given her last film, that she has no issues with her capacity to love somebody of the same gender, but she's not joining the white gay paradigm.
Right. But what's the advantage or the disadvantage for a black person to align themselves with the white gay paradigm?
There are no black advantages to aligning to anything white. You only advantage white people when you identify with something white. You might get a little money or whatever, but as a black human being, as in terms of self-respect and advancement of black people, that nothing along those lines occurs at all. You advance their agenda.
Right. Well, and I'll just mention this just for factual information. I think we were talking earlier about some of the athletes, and these are all fringe athletes. These are not superstars. These are brothers who will struggle to make a team, as in Michael Sam's case. As in Jason Collins, as his career was pretty much over when he decided to come out. And in the brother at Boston College, Derek Gordon, who came out and he was associated with an older white man. The chances of him making an NBA team are slim quite honestly, and as they are for many college athletes. So these are, and so you have to kind of question the rationale or the motive for these brothers coming out. But what's that conversation like? Are they actually in the conversation between them and their white mate or the white gay world that they're aligning themselves with? What's that conversation like? Are they saying to themselves, or I mean, are they saying to the white folks that they align themselves with that? Yeah, you go ahead and do that because you could be the first one. You could be the gay Jackie Robinson, and it's very important that you do that because you'll be representing so many, and so many younger people will see it, and they will view you as a role model. What really happens there in terms of that conversation, and are they being played?
Well, they're being played, but I want to back up a step before getting into that because there's an important cause and effect issue here that the black community needs to take a look at. Michael Sam, Jason Collin, this baseball player from a minor league who just quote unquote came out, and the rest of them. Whiteness is a lot more glamorous, seems better and more powerful, and the best choice for a lot of people to make, unfortunately, in the black community. They're wrong about that in terms of it being a benefit to them as a self-respecting person, with self-respect hopefully being a goal. You cannot be black and align yourself with whiteness and racism and have self-respect and mental health. I think that's what Michael Sam is dealing with right now. But to step back again, the black community, including among gay-identified black folks who are black people who carry the white banner, white gay rainbow banner, there's nothing in our community that's supported or that's promoted for them to be aware of and learn to love themselves in their own image as same-gender loving people. Like I've developed the Black Men's Exchange, which has been of benefit to a whole bunch of people who are same-gender loving, bisexual, etc. But the organization, because it doesn't have a rainbow flag and never has a pink triangle, and it's not a part of the white gay framework, is constantly being marginalized by the white hegemony and mainstream and their black compatriots or black beholders, if you will, who are anti-black in many cases. So as a result of them trying to marginalize or make me in Black Men Exchange look like it's this troubled thing, this problematic thing, this radical thing, this anti-white racist thing, people don't hear about it, or if they do, they think twice because of the white disapproval. Well, that doesn't serve Michael Sam, Jason Collins, who could actually benefit from the healing, healthy, educational, and affirming work that the Black Men's Exchange does. So I say that to answer your question because if these brothers had a support system that looked like them, they wouldn't be so at risk to wind up having some white boy who wants to have sex with them, like what happened to the young brother who was a basketball player who wound up being counseled, in quotes, by this older white man who wind up having sex with him. And now the boy goes from old white man to old white man, and as opposed to playing basketball, he's being bounced around.
Derek Gordon.
Derek Gordon, from white man to white man. So this is a double-edged sword. There's the appeal of being brainwashed by racism, or I should say there's the brainwashing that results in that looking appealing. And then there's this empty space or alleged empty space that gets no support from, so the bottom line is these brothers need support from us. And I reached out to Sam over a year ago. When I first heard about him, I reached out to him. But as far as I'm concerned, based on his lack of response, because I know he got the message, I was too black. And a lot of black people need to understand that that's an issue of self-hate and mental illness in and of itself, that you're afraid to engage on people.
Right. Just to point out, almost on cue, as Michael Sam, as you mentioned in the tease, went in to seek some form of mental shelter and mental help, Dave Denson comes out as gay. He's a baseball player in the Milwaukee Brewers minor league organization. He came out just recently as gay, and again, he's a fringe baseball player. No guarantee that he will become a professional and excel as a professional, but there was a great deal of notoriety in the news once that announcement was made.
Well, yeah, in this society, that a black male who is both considered potentially particularly masculine in terms of that construct, and even violent or menacing and all kinds of stuff. For him to create a dichotomy and call himself a gay in a society is considered sensational and even ironic. So when a brother says he's gay and identifies with that white homosexual framework, that's news, regardless of the fact that he might be a mediocre or relatively low and succeeding athlete. That's news, because as opposed to being a banger and whatever else white people portray black men to be, this guy's considered the extreme opposite. And it also shows that we have, in quotes, punks and faggots too.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know how black men are bags with all kinds of agendas to make us look like we are just imbalanced or tripping or something's going on with us at all times. And there was a rumor for years that there were no black homosexuals, that black men didn't do that. And now that cannot be said, particularly now, given all the brothers that have quote unquote come out.
Oh, so when you reference punks and faggots, you meant in the literal sense.
Well, no, I never mean punks and faggots in the literal sense.
Okay.
I mean that's how people who stereotype see homosexuals.
Well, that's what I meant. Yeah, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Okay. Well, one thing to also, well, let's get back to Kerry Washington for a second, because you may recall, I think it was late winter or early spring, GLAAD had their award ceremony, and she gave this speech, and you referenced it earlier, how she gave a side eye when she talked about black homophobia, and that got a lot of praise in that community, in the white gay community. She was speaking to a largely white audience, and she was seen as a hero for calling out black homophobia. Two questions, Cleo. Does black, and let me just ask them both. Does black homophobia exist? And I guess we've made this clear. There's some duplicity in the white gay world in terms of black homosexuals. Yes or no?
Yes.
To both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, first of all, Kerry Washington, bless her heart, is ignorant. And I don't mean she's ignorant in every part of her life, but she was played like a basketball by them white folks when she did that crap. And when she did something very white accommodating, called herself a person of color, and then disassociated and went black, to use a word, not calling herself black, but to point a finger at black people and scold them and separate herself from that as a person of color before getting to that part of her speech. It was lame and it was sad, and it shows that all that white man sleeping she's doing in her film has gotten to her head. Her show Scandal, because she's definitely a white accommodationist, and it was very disappointing. I didn't watch the show live. I don't watch nothing GLAAD does, but it was called to my attention that she made that speech. It might have been by you, and then I went on YouTube and I watched it, and it was just disgusting. And all the people that praised her were just ignorant, because first of all, they weren't looking at the fact that this woman was critiquing alleged black homophobia to a sea of white people without critiquing the fact that it was a sea of white people. Right. In 2000, what was it, 2014 to 2015?
That was early
whatever
this
it
year.
was.
Early this year.
Okay. Well, the bottom line is that homosexuals come in all colors, but yet and still, she was talking to nothing but white folks primarily, and a few black people in the audience, probably mostly who were with white folk. And she didn't have enough sense to understand that she was talking to a racially biased host who didn't have the capacity to have diversity. She couldn't see that. She was so busy trying to perform for them.
Well, why? I'm sorry. Let me just ask this. Why isn't there? I mean, everyone wants to have. I mean, the alleged concern is that everyone wants to have an open discussion. Everyone should be allowed to be who they want to be. Why hasn't there been a discussion on this duplicity that you and I are pointing at? Why hasn't there been a clear and rational discussion on what's going on here? Because clearly it's in existence. And as a result of it, Michael Sam, somebody who everyone loved less than a year ago, is now facing some mental anguish.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, he was dealing with mental issues the whole time, and it finally it finally came to a head.
But why not
But
the
when
discussion? The discussion, right? Since everyone seems, I mean,
you mean among black people,
well, let's start there first. Yeah, yeah.
black
Among black
folks.
people, and let me just say that I can kind of see why black people kind of distance themselves from Michael Sam. And I'm not saying gay affirming black people. Some of them may have felt that the whole cake incident after he was drafted in the NFL was a bit too much. That it was too
But wait
much.
a minute, wait a minute.
And let me just say, and they may have also felt that this was part of a game. He was being played, and
But
they
wait a
saw. But
minute.
go ahead.
You said that black people distance themselves from Michael Sam.
Yes.
I think the reality of the facts are
No. Yeah.
Sam distances himself from black people because even when he did his cake routine, it was lily white.
Right.
This man that he supposed he was going to marry was lily white. You never. I only saw one picture of him, and somebody sent it to me because they knew I would be surprised, and it was with his family, some kids in his family. I've only seen one picture of Sam with black people. So he already set up the situation because a lot of black people in Hollywood are seemingly anti-black, like Don Lemon, for example, who only critiques black people, is never ever affirming of black people. There's this expectation when they see a black face on TV that black people are going to be dismissed, and Sam fulfilled that prophecy 100%. So I think that even if black people were considering embracing him, he already painted a picture of I'm not with y'all.
Right, and that's my point. That's my point that I was trying to make. That, but let's also take into consideration there are black people across the gamut who will have white mates that black people have not ostracized. So, and I think
Yeah, but
for a lot of people,
but how many of them was throwing cake on each other?
that's my point. That's my point. That's my point. A lot of people saw that cake and they said that's too much. This brother, good luck, brother. Hey, we wish you the best, but keep that over there, and we're gonna go back to what we're doing here. I think that was the energy from the black community because
Well,
a lot of people saw it as a game, as a way to bring attention to himself. You may recall that he also did Dancing with the Stars. Here's someone who's trying to get his career started, and he's off Dancing with the Stars on that television show. So
yeah,
it seemed like a publicity stunt.
Hollywood is very, very compelling to people. Everybody wants to be a star. Everybody thinks the world of so-called celebrity is this romantic, wonderful, glamorous thing. I mean, as you know, I'm on TV a lot, and I can't go nowhere now in major cities and even in minor cities, if you will, and not be recognized. And people think that I live this glamorous life and that I probably just got off my jet. So people make a lot of assumptions. But the other part that I think is important when you talk about Sam is that Sam is just a product. Sam is being coaxed or was being coaxed to do all this stuff by the white gay community and by that banner that they stapled on him to carry for that agenda. So he probably, I don't know this to be the case, and I might be incorrect, but it's possible that none of that was his idea.
Mm.
It's possible that the cake thing, the whole thing about you putting your boyfriend on TV that you're gonna love him or whatever, all that stuff could have been orchestrated by somebody else. Just like the coming out of most of these black men is somebody else's idea,
Yeah, yeah,
some
yeah.
white gay person's idea.
Right. So now Michael Sam is sitting in a room somewhere by himself in anguish and having mental concerns. And those people who pushed him to do this are nowhere to be found.
Well, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I don't know if they know where to be found or not. I believe he's going to be exploited as long as he's a relatively attractive young man who's willing to be in white people's beds. He will be, no matter where he goes, they're going to be after him.
Well, we haven't heard anything, and that's the genesis of our conversation. We haven't heard anything from that community yet regarding Michael Sam's mental concerns. And it's likely we probably won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, that's not cute. I mean, and what I mean by cute, it's not cute talking about you have mental health issues, but coming out saying you gay is cute to GLAAD.
Yeah.
And being a black male athlete, which supposedly is a dichotomy giving what's expected of black men. And allegedly, one thing the white gays love to do is call black folks homophobic. And what people like Michael Sam and his other brother do is go na 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 na. But look what we got here.
Hold on one second.
And it's crazy.
Cleo, you broke off. Can you pick up again from the na 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 na? I want to hear that one more time and just continue from there.
I, I said that when a black man is willing, after being folks, who's an athlete in particular, to come say he's gay, white gays and the black people that follow them and inform them that black people are so-called homophobic, always calling the black community homophobic. But when a black man who's an athlete is willing to say, I'm gay, they get to kind of do a na-na-na-na-na. You might be homophobic, but look what we got here.
Yeah. It's like, right, yeah, we got the new pride now.
Right, and something you said earlier, which is too complex to get into in a quick discussion, but you asked, is the black community so-called homophobic? And I would say, as you've heard me say many, many times, the word homophobia is too small, too limited to describe the full range of black people's concern and anxiety about homosexuality. There's masculinity, the state of manhood, post-white supremacy states that black men are in that concern black people, including the feminization of black men in media and the powerlessness and the stigmatization of black men in media, etc. The concerns around so-called homophobia has to do with how black men have been treated and presented in this country. And there's some legitimate concern inside of that anxiety. Though some of it, because it's not been addressed hardly at all over the centuries, has bubbled up in dysfunctional ways and in extreme ways. We need to have a conversation finally. And we also look at why the black community is scared to death to have the conversation.
Right.
It's not just homophobia.
Right. Well, as we wrap up this part of Parallel Realities podcast, I will just add that Don Lemon, when he came out, he said the urging, the impetus for his coming out was, I forget the young man's name, but the young man who went to Rutgers University and jumped off the George Washington Bridge because a liaison that he had was being videotaped or recorded on the internet, and he came out and he was homosexual, and Don Lemon and that young man happened to be white, and Don Lemon said he was the impetus for his book. I'm just wondering if Don Lemon and other folks who align themselves in the gay world will also inquire at least about the mental health of Michael Sam now.
Well, it would be interesting to see. I mean, maybe because Don Lemon and him both like white men, and there's a white male chasing alliance, that might be something that interests Don Lemon and paying some attention to him because they have that in common. But being that he is black, he might not get no play at all regarding whatever he's going through from the likes of Don Lemon. I mean, as we mentioned, he dedicated his memoirs to a white male who was a tragic figure. But there were so many young black teens who had committed suicide as well, who he paid no attention to.
Yeah. You're listening to the Parallel Realities podcast. Okay, so that's so Cleo, in about another 14, 15 months, we will have a new president, or President Obama will no longer be in office. And as you know, the Republicans had their debate recently. There were two debates because there's so many of them. They had the top 10 and they had the bottom 7. And obviously, Donald Trump has been majorly in the news. What is your whole thought on this Trump phenomenon that appears to be sweeping much of mainstream media?
I don't have response to that. He sickens me. He kind of makes my skin crawl as a figure. I found the whole GOP debate more interesting as a phenomena than just him, because this lineup of white men waiting to get into office, except for Dr. Ben Carson, who's black, who was interesting when he got the chance to speak. I mean, there were over an hour that he went without speaking almost as the debate started and he got his first chance to speak. And I thought that was interesting. And I was more focused on him, though I did listen to the others and his bizarre approach. And the most bizarre thing he said was that people should tithe. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, it was
People
towards
should,
the end. He was talking about tithing, and I was like, oh boy. He started off strongly. He
yeah,
started off very strong, I thought. But then towards that point, I was like, oh boy, where is he going? But let me just ask you this. Much of the post-debate conversation has still centered around Donald Trump. This is in mainstream media. And being a member of the media myself, I observe these things and find them quite fascinating, but nonetheless very predictable. Much of the post-debate discussion has been about Donald Trump and his arrogance. However, you may recall the first question regarding black life, period, wasn't until about 90 minutes into the debate. It was one question. I forget who it was directed at. It wasn't directed at Ben Carson nor Trump. And that person had a brief answer, and the Fox panel moved on to the very next topic. 90 minutes into that debate. Now, there have been a lot of things that have happened over the last year, but black unarmed death at the hands of law enforcement has been one of them. The whole Black Lives Matter campaign has spawned as a result of that. I found that predictable, but equally saddening because there was no critique, no analysis in the mainstream media as a result of that.
yeah. Well, I'm sorry that it made you sad, etc. Um, I had no reaction to it at all. I mean, when you drop a rock, it hits the ground. And my point is that's just how predictable the whole thing is. And I think that the whole mention of it was just token, so to not be accused of having not mentioned it at all. And I think they didn't gear the question toward Ben Carson because it might have been a more, being that he's black, they probably feared that it would have been a more verbose or maybe powerful response than they really want to occur during that GOP process. But I mean, the party, unlike Democrats, is blatant and straight up with its white supremacists, white is right, white police or police period state support that that it was only a token mention, and it was even though it was the first time it was mentioned during this process, white candidates had make token mentions of Black Lives Matter in local elections because it's the thing to do now. It's the PC thing to do. It's to talk about it, but the Republicans don't play when it comes to being strategists, and they don't care nothing about that movement.
Yeah, no, I agree, and they've shown that they've shown that consistently. The interesting and this type of analysis is needed for our community, though. Just as we in the previous segment, at least I thought, provided some sort of critical thought regarding the whole Michael Sam and white and athletes, black athletes coming out as gay phenomenon. There needs to be some critical analysis and some critical thought provided here because it reveals a lot about this world in which we live in, this America in which we live in terms of black issues.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of room for analysis, critical analysis of things in our community from a black or parallel reality perspective, absolutely. And hopefully what we do here contributes to that important phenomena that needs to occur.
Okay, well let's continue that. Black Lives Matter. They have gained in popularity, and now as many presidential hopefuls have public speeches across the country, what's been happening is that members of the Black Lives Matter group will storm the stage and interrupt their speech. In fact, I believe about 2 weeks ago, Bernie Sanders, a speech he had, I believe in the state of Washington, was interrupted where he didn't even give the speech, and the crowd there was disappointed. And I believe Jeb Bush was also interrupted recently as well when he tried to give a speech. Donald Trump has threatened that if they try to interrupt his speech, they will be beat up or they'll be accosted in some way. But I find it fascinating, and there's a lot of people, and again, this critical analysis is needed. There are some people who feel that Black Lives Matter will not come after Hillary Clinton. Now, in case you look at polls and take them for what you want to take them for, Bernie Sanders is gaining ground on Hillary Clinton. In fact, I believe he was leading in New Hampshire, for whatever that's worth. And there are some people who, in the black community even, who feel that Black Lives Matter does not have enough guts to go after Hillary Clinton in the same way because, and if you look at her record, she has a lot to be taken to task for in regards to black people. And though she's offered some token comments about black life in the affirmative, take that for what you want to take it for. But a lot of people just view it as they will not come after her. Your thoughts?
Well, Hillary did something very strategic. I don't think it's sincere. I think it's disingenuous and strategic. When she referenced Black Lives Matter, and you said she gave some token commentary about the existence of the phenomena, and now she's talking about how racist the criminal justice system is, and she's saying these things, which nobody in the Republican Party has said. So she's setting herself up where she would not be a target of them.
Well, one thing,
she's also, and Hillary's also a woman, which brings me a question that I have for you regarding, because you followed them much more. I only knew that they had ran right off the stage of Bernie Sanders. I don't know about anything else.
Okay.
You said they've done it before. So my question to you is, I saw the two sisters who were frankly powerful, and I agree with everything they said at the Seattle event, but at all of these events where they've actually stormed the stage, has there been women every time?
I believe so. Yeah, I know for a fact in the Washington one with Bernie Sanders,
right,
there were 3 women.
right,
yeah.
And I have a problem with that. I have a major problem with that. And when you mention Hillary, and that Hillary is a woman, along with the Democratic dedication to, the black dedication to Democrats, no matter what the hell they do, including Hillary Clinton's being married to the man who put so many brothers in jail, or create the context that led to that outcome. We have been trained very well by white folks and by black people who are brainwashed to support Democrats no matter what. Even Obama gave hardly any voice or direction to the black community during when he ran, because he figured, I'm already black and I'm a Democrat, I got that covered, and he did have it covered.
Yeah, 98% covered.
Right. So he gave the black community throughout his whole presidency, and even preceding it, hardly any energy. He took it for granted.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is that Hillary's a woman, and that might be why they won't say anything either, because Black Lives Matters has done something beyond the powerful mantra that Black Lives Matter. On a level of representation and the black male voice, black men's lives and black men's voices are not mattering.
No, they're not. No, they're not at all.
And that's ironic, because even though black women are murdered, like Sandra Bland was set up to die, also in the hands of the cops, the majority of the murders of unarmed people by cops by a landslide are black men. And black women's lives are equally as important. But Black Lives Matter movement does not see the importance of black male voices. And I've had conversations on as a blogger about this, and heard some interesting explanations for why. And one explanation I heard was, well, there's concern that black men are going to take over. There's concern that black men are going to try to control it. And that's extremely offensive, dehumanizing, and just as horrible as the murders of black men by cops. Yeah. It's dismissive, it's dehumanizing, it's minimizing, it's stigmatizing. We're not being trusted again, and there's a mixed message here that I don't like.
Right.
And before the smoke cleared, and I watched over time to make sure this was occurring, and I realized this was occurring. The Black Lives Matter movement has a undertone, if not an overt tone, of black male silencing.
that's a very interesting perspective that you provide, and in my eyes, it kind of continues to drive a wedge between black male female relations, in with that setup, because if you're not if brothers aren't supporting sisters, the sisters spearheading Black Lives Matter, then they're viewed as not representing. But I will say that sisters have always been there for brothers in terms of the protestations that we've had over the years, even long before Black Lives Matter.
Of course.
They've always been there, and so it raises a lot of questions about the agenda or the strategy of Black Lives Matter, and some people, I'll just present this. Some people just view it as, and you may recall, let me just back up. You may recall that back during the winter, that some of those members were getting paid to protest. They were funded through George Soros. So it just raises questions from people in terms of what the real agenda is. You may recall, just very briefly, you may recall that also some sisters out in the Bay Area were taking off their bras and protesting in San Francisco over Black Lives Matter, in support for Black Lives Matter, and some of them were also viewed as queer, and there were no brothers there as well supporting them. So it was spearheaded largely by women. The faces of it were women and still continue to be, at least to my knowledge. So yeah, I see your point. What do you think? What do you think is the end game? Let's just cut to the chase. What do you think is the end game?
Well, because people are brainwashed and anti-black male, including black male, particularly a lot of gay-identified black male so-called leaders are anti-black males. A lot of anti-black male energy in a society, and we don't listen. We get emotional and make deductions that are pretty much outrageous. And what I'm talking about right now is because I'm critiquing Black Lives Matters for silencing black men. Instead of hearing my point, which is a fact, I will be called sexist and blah 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 blah.
Exactly.
So I want to talk to that real quickly by saying no, I'm not sexist. I completely support black women leading. I completely support black women leading the cause around Black Lives Matters. That's fine. What I don't support is the silencing of black male voices. And what I don't support is the expectation and assumptions that black men can't be trusted and that there are not black men out there who can speak to these issues and share the stage and share concerns with black women for black people. I don't believe that's, and I think that there's an anti-black male sentiment that has a strain in the Black Lives Matters movement, which is extremely ironic given the body pile of black men who are the ones who are being murdered that it's allegedly inspired this whole thing.
Right.
And I myself have actively raised the names of black women who have been murdered and actively supported the critiques of the tendency not to bring in the voices of black women who have been murdered. And I totally support that. But we cannot claim that Black Lives Matter, and we cannot fight in behalf of the mass murder compared to everybody else in this country, including women, of black men under the auspices of so-called law enforcement, and exclude black men voices in a society that's anti-black men and have a justice outcome. It ain't gonna work.
Right.
And ironically, I just have to say this too. They're bringing in the words queer and trans, all this other kind of stuff into the fold now too, in this black male silencing phenomena.
Yeah.
And it's very, very problematic. It's going to implode, and whether it's conscious or unconscious, it's demoralizing, silencing, and feeding into the social castration of black men.
A couple of things, and at the end of it, all of these are kind of points that you're more than welcome to express. But let's just back up for a second. In terms of Hillary Clinton, because we start off there, and I just want to get this in there. Other than being the wife of President Clinton for the 2 terms that he was in office, she was also the governor of New York during a time when stop and frisk terrorized brothers throughout at least the New York City area, and there was no comment from Hillary Clinton. So let's just keep that in mind also. The question, well, and again, you're more than welcome to comment on that as well. But the other thing I wanted to ask, or at least point out, was, you've expressed your concerns about this Black Lives Matter phenomenon being mostly spearheaded by women. Um,
No, that's not my concern. My
okay,
concern, I got to be clear.
sure.
I'm not concerned that it's mostly spearheaded by women. I'm concerned that there's no black men
Okay,
involved and have voice from the construct of Black Lives Matter, and that the black male voices are absent.
right,
I'm not bothered that women are running it.
right. I feel you. And vis-a-vis the fact that most of the deaths are black men, not discounting Sakia Gunn or Manisha McBride and Sandra Bland. The overwhelming number of the murders are black men. Got you. Have you heard from other brothers in regards to this? Have they expressed a similar point of view?
No, no. As usual, I raise issues that people are thinking about, but don't have the balls, pun intended, to actually say things. And when I finally mentioned that concern online, um, there were people who said, "I thought about that and I noticed that," but they hadn't said anything.
Well,
So no, but
I'm
so
sorry.
once I mentioned it, there are other people who said, "Oh yeah, I've noticed it," but there was nobody saying anything about that before I heard myself say it.
Well, this is why what I said earlier about continuing a schism between black male and female relations. When you and I have had this conversation, when Sandra Bland was her situation was put on videotape, and we found that she was dead, and just that whole display. You and I talked about how there was very little response from black men in regards to that. So if you look at it from the women's side, and again, I'm just raising the question. Some women may feel that we haven't really been able to count on you, brothers. So we just gonna take the mantle.
Yeah, but see, that's dysfunctional and counterproductive because you don't do human rights movements to get vengeance on somebody else. You know,
Is
you
it
don't.
really?
You,
Well, is it
it
really
should not be.
vengeance?
Well, I'm only raising that because of what you just said. You
Yeah,
just
but
got
yeah,
finished mentioning that
yeah,
Sandra Bland,
right.
pardon me, was murdered and or died in the while in custody.
Hmm.
And your bottom line is your point is that black women have been relatively ignored, who have also been victims of police. And maybe this is them trying to create some balance, given the lack of balance. Is that your point?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm saying that's dysfunctional, neurotic, and they need to join Michael Sam at the mental health and get that mental health issue dealt with. Because you don't use justice movements to create balance. You make balance. You articulate and demonstrate balance. And they need to demonstrate balance and justice behavior by letting it continue to be women led, because women lead groups better than men, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. And they need to continue with the feminine insight and genius that women bring, but also use their wisdom, if they got some on this tip, to bring in black voices, to bring in people that look like most of the murdered people, who could bring the issue in a appropriate manner and make sure that there's men. Because see, white supremacy appreciates this manlessness. You know, white supremacy appreciates when there's no man coming to the mic and talking about these issues, because they do what they can to make sure. That's why Arsenio Hall got canceled. They do what they can to make sure that there's those strong men in the canvas. And frankly, Black Lives Matter so far is playing into that tendency, and that's dysfunctional and not helpful.
Okay. Okay. Uh, does it become an issue of ego at this point? That they can't even see that, or as you said, when the question is broached, or the opportunity to balance things out is broached, they view you or anyone else who brings that to them as being anti-black woman in this case. Does it become now, since they're getting some shine through the media and everything, does it become about ego at that point?
I don't know if it's ego or not. Frankly, I think that, like I said earlier in this conversation, this society is anti-black male. It's a white supremacist canvas. White supremacy, in terms of who it prefers to deal with among black people. It prefers black women, and it prefers homosexual men, particularly feminine or performing homosexual men, because they feel like they can manipulate them better or have sex with them better in terms of access. So, and I think that they create, they hire and bring into being who they want, that they can manage better. And I think that historically, white men have been. That's why black men are dying at by police, as police, etc., because of the threat that they feel like black men are to them, particularly a strong brother, because it was strong brothers in this patriarchal culture during the enslavement period, like Nat Turner, Vesey, Denmark Vesey, etc., who were stepping out against their injustice. So they've created a canvas that has silenced black men, and unfortunately, Black Lives Matter has not had enough insight to look at that phenomena and do some countering to that. They're
Mm-hmm.
playing into it.
Mm-hmm. Well, can these women just see it as we out there protesting? We've been out there and continue to be out there protesting when Trayvon Martin, when Eric Gardner, when Michael Brown have been killed, etc. So we've already done that. Can that be their answer? Can that be how? And does it really matter who the spokespeople are, who the front faces are? Does that really matter as long as the work is being done and the issue is being brought to light?
Black men and women, black males and females, because this includes youth too, are being self-conceptually tortured and traumatized, and our image is being constantly badgered, and it has horrible effect. Michael Sam, for example, and these black people who are never in the arena with black people, who are never taking pictures or never being friendly or affirming of black people, is one of the consequences of racism in the society and the attacks on black people's image. So it does matter when you have a counter injustice movement like Black Lives Matter, and there's no males there to help counter the trauma about being black male, image wise, self conceptualized in a society. It matters. And when you say black life matters and you exclude black males, there's a subconscious impact, and it's the subconscious impact that's not addressed that leads to mental health problems.
Right.
I mean, for example, Michael Sam didn't know he was battling mental health issues. He called himself trying to conquer them by kissing white butt, by eating cake with white folks as they clapped and applauded, by proposing marriage to white people and being constantly wrapped around them. He thought he was going to alleviate his interpersonal struggles. And no, you got to go right to the struggle to alleviate it.
Right.
And if part of your struggle is pain around being a black male homosexual society, you have to come directly to that source and address it, not to white folks.
One other thing, and this maybe speaks to the demoralization that you referenced there. Just walking, I live in Harlem, and there's this documentary center, Edward Mazel's, a white man who has been known for doing documentaries. He has a center in Harlem, and I was walking by it the other day, and I saw that there was a Black Trans Film Festival that I believe is taking place sometime soon. And it just dawned on me, this is continuing your point about the demoralization of the black male image, I guess you could say. And I thought to myself, has there ever been a Black Men's Film Festival? And I'll just put that question to you. Do you recall one? Have you ever heard of one? Do you know if it actually exists?
I have never heard of one. I mean, I travel the country all the time, and my ear is always to the ground regarding what black people do in this country, and I'm sure I miss a lot of things. But something as special as a Black Men's Film Festival, I haven't seen that yet. Though I did see, and I was asked to speak at, which is my point in terms of what's brought to me, a Black Men's Mental Health Conference did occur. It was a conference, and I was asked to be the keynote speaker. So there are people doing things for black men in this country, but a film festival, I haven't seen one, but I imagine there's not a whole lot of films on black men's struggle.
Right. Well, we've done a few, and hopefully this can, this may be the starting point to jump off and do something, have something like that, because, if you notice something, as I did, the opportunity exists for you to start your own cottage industry, if you will. So perhaps this could be a jump-off point for us or for whomever else sees it, if it actually doesn't exist.
Well, I'm down for that. I do work, as you know, and have worked with you on activities and projects to illuminate black struggle, including black male struggle, and working on some stuff now. So that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, one other thing as we kind of move along, we're talking about Black Lives Matter, and they've done a great job in terms of raising the issue, and these are things that we have as black people have kind of always felt in our conscious, in our subconscious, in our just our daily movements, but they've never really been put to the fore, so they deserve a great deal of credit for that. But let me ask you, and this is just a personal thought, I kind of feel as though Black Lives Matter is not really speaking to black people. It's almost as if they're trying to speak to white people to say, see, look at what you're doing wrong, change your ways. And I'm not sure if that is going to be productive.
I agree. I mean, I don't know if their audience. I mean, I haven't followed them up close. I mean, I did have the founder of it on the Roland Martin radio show when I host. I have people on, and she was my guest once, and we talked. But I don't know. I mean, I really don't know if that's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Before we wrap up, any other comments, Cleo?
Only comment that comes to mind that I want to emphasize is that I want people to, instead of having a knee-jerk reaction about me being, as a so-called masculine man, patriarchal and sexist, let's look at the facts of what I'm saying, which is men have not had any significant voice or been allowed to share voice with the leaders or spokespersons of Black Lives Matter. That's a fact. That's ironic and problematic. It feeds into a macro agenda in the society to silence strong black male voices who challenge injustice, and they need to take a look at that.
Right. One thing just came to mind, but isn't that the same critique that women have had in these black-led movements? I mean, has there ever been, and please correct me if I'm wrong, has there ever been a moment where a black man has given, a head of an organization, the spokesperson for an organization, has given some shine to a woman to come in and also share the platform with him?
The answer is yes, but beyond that, though, patriarchy is a problem. Patriarchy historically is a problem. And one of the things that black men have done historically in this country to make up for castration, to make up for not being able to practice patriarchy well and a patriarchal culture because they were completely powerless in a society, no job, no nothing because of racism. And some of them have been neurotically making up for lost time by being overly controlling, and some of the issues that these women might be, that's a theory, reacting to. I still say, at the risk of sounding like a cliche, and I rarely use cliches, two wrongs will make a right. A wrong and a right means that there's a wrong still occurring. The bottom line is that we need to make sure that we're first of all, we're talking about something, as I said earlier, that has had a particular impact on black men for decades. Of course, they've been killing women too. They hung women. But the bottom line is primarily it's been black men. That don't mean that black men should run it. I mean, I'm glad Ida B. Wells stepped in back in the day when she did regarding the lynchings. Hey, nobody was doing it. I'm glad she did. But in this day and age, there's such thing as a black male that can be helpful, or black males that can be helpful, and it's already necessary to bring balance to the attack on blacks' self-concept. I mean, there's all kinds of excuses and rationales that everybody has. I mean, these women who are leading Black Lives Matters are very, very intelligent people. So it's not an issue of intelligence. I think it's an issue of unconscious neuroses and concern regarding black male issues and sexism. And I think that they're doing an injustice, regardless of the excuses, by silencing black men. They're hurting black men, and that's ironic given the fact that they're allegedly doing what they're doing in reaction to black men being hurt.
Right. Well, it sounds as if there needs to be a healing conversation that needs to take place first. because, or several conversations, because, wounded people can't help or protect or even see other wounded people. If you're wounded, you will act out of that wound as opposed to healing.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it just seems like there needs to be another conversation that has to take place, because some people may not see what you are describing.
Yep. There's a lot of woundedness in this community. Black woundedness that unaddressed has resulted to a whole lot of conflict in our community and hateful behavior between black people and dismissive behavior between black people, which is one of the reasons why we've been the most unsuccessful group in history, in post-white supremacy history, at fighting for our rights or getting justice, because unconsciously we have been successfully trained to hate our own guts and distrust each other. And the Black Lives Matter movement, regardless of how allegedly successful it is going to be for naught if they practice injustice too.
On that note, we'll wrap up this edition of Parallel Realities Podcast. I'm Anthony Harris.
I'm Cleo Monago.
Thanks for listening.